Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Dita Melina Putriana with ID number 24 2020 22. In here, I'm going to present about cross-cultural understanding, cultural differences between Eastern and Western, individualism and collectivism. In this presentation, I will explain several things about culture. The first one is I will explain about the definition and element of culture. The second one, I will explain about why understanding culture is important for English department student. After that, I also will explain about the cultural differences between Eastern and Western cultures, especially individualism versus collectivism. And the last one, I will connect these differences with hosted culture dimension theory. And finally, I will end with a conclusion. Now, let me start by explaining what culture actually means. So, culture is a shared way of life among a group of people. It includes their belief, values, behavior, tradition, and how they communicate with each other. Culture shapes how people think, act, interact in society. It influences what we consider polite, what we eat, how we dress, and even how we express emotion. There are several elements of culture, but today, in here, I will focus on manner, custom, and material of culture. The first one, I will explain about manner. Manner refers to how people behave politely in everyday life. For example, in Indonesia, is it common to smile, greet others, and use the hand when giving or receiving something as a sign of respect. Meanwhile, in UK, good manners are shown by saying "excuse me" when passing by someone, respecting personal space, and always being on time for appointment. And then the second one is custom. Custom means traditional practice that people follow in their society. For example, in Indonesia, we have the custom of gotong royong or working together and silaturahmi, which means visiting relatives that neighbor to strengthen relationship. Meanwhile, in British culture, people have customs such as afternoon tea and forming a queue politely when waiting. It's considered very rude to skip the line. And the last one is about material of culture. Material of culture includes physical things that represent a culture's identity. For example, in Indonesia, we have batik, wayang, and rumah adat as a part of our cultural heritage. Meanwhile, in UK, there are iconic red telephone box, double-decker bus, and traditional British house with chimney that reflect their culture. So, now that we have seen some example of cultural element from both Indonesia and the UK, let's move on to understand why learning about culture is especially important for English department student. Understanding this cultural element is very important for English department student because it helps us first communicate more effectively with native speakers and people from other cultures. The second, show empathy, tolerance, and respect toward different perspectives. Third, adapt our language and behavior in diverse situations. And the last one is represent Indonesia positively in international context. As a future English teacher, translator, or professional, we will interact with people from various cultural backgrounds. Knowing how culture influences communication helps us avoid misunderstanding, interpret message accurately, and respond appropriately. So, in short, learning about cross-cultural understanding prepares English students to become open-minded. So, now let's move to the main discussion about the difference between Eastern and Western culture, especially between Indonesia and the United Kingdom. So, in here, I take one of the most striking differences, which is individualism versus collectivism. So, now let's talk about the individualism first. In individualistic culture, people usually focus on their personal goals and individual achievement. They believe that everyone should be responsible for their own success and happiness. Personal opinions and decisions are often considered more important than what the group thinks because independence is highly valued. Success is usually measured by how well someone performs on their own, not by the group achievement. So, people in this culture prefer to make their own choices, take responsibility for the result, and feel proud of what they accomplish individually. For example, when a British student finishes high school and turns 18, it's very common for them to move to another city for university, even if their family lives nearby. They usually rent flat, work part-time, and manage their own expenses. This reflects their desire to live independently and take responsibility for their own lives. So, now let's move on to the collectivism. In collectivistic culture, people focus more on group harmony and community well-being rather than individual success. Every decision is usually made based on what's best for the family or the group, not just for one person. When someone succeeds, it is seen as a shared achievement everyone feels proud because it reflects the unity of the group. In this culture, cooperation, loyalty, and maintaining good relationships are very important values. For example, in Indonesia, we value togetherness. People often make decisions based on what the best is for the group or family, not just from themselves. For example, many Indonesian graduate just to keep living with their parents even after getting a job because it's seen as a way to stay close and take care of the family. To understand the difference more clearly, I will use Hofstede culture dimension theory. According to Cliff Hofstede, every country has different cultural values that influence people's behavior. One of his main dimensions is individualism versus collectivism. In individualistic societies like UK, people emphasize independence, personal goals, and self-achievement. Success is often seen as something you earn by yourself. Meanwhile, in collectivistic societies like Indonesia, people emphasize loyalty, cooperation, and group harmony. Success is often shared if one person succeeds. It brings pride to the family or community. This shows that Hofstede theory helps us understand why people from different cultures behave differently. It doesn't mean one culture is better than the other, they just have different priorities and definition of success. So, to conclude my presentation, culture plays a very important role in shaping who we are, how we behave, and how we communicate with others. By understanding the differences between Eastern and Western culture, especially Indonesian collectivism and British individualism, we can improve the way we communicate and show respect for diversity. And Hofstede theory helps us realize that every culture has its own values and strengths. Individualism teaches independence and self-confidence, meanwhile collectivism teaches unity, empathy, and cooperation. So that's all from me. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.